I'm Summer Falgiano, and you're tuned in to Badasses in Tech. Today, we're joined by David Valverde, founder and CEO of Pranos.ai. On this episode, David lets us in on how he's shaping the future of advertising. He also shares his secret to pushing the status quo and explains how it starts with facing fears from within.
At Pranos.ai, we're basically converting car windows into digital display systems that basically allows for consumers to express themselves in the out-of-home world.
Wow.
Yeah.
So are you telling me that any car, anybody, any consumer could basically create themselves to be a walking billboard or a drivable billboard?
Yeah, that's the vision, right? And that's really, the idea behind that is just because of how innovative and aesthetically pleasing our displays are and turnkey compatible they are. We created a consumer product that can basically be retrofitted with most car makes and models. And yeah, you can basically convert all your rear windows into a full HD display. And you have full control over the content, right? So that's another disruptive aspect of what it is that we're doing.
So tell me a little bit more about that. You're saying disruptive. Is this something that is relatively new to this type of industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're relatively new. We're a relatively new concept. I think the out-of-home digital signage is still on. It's kind of the next frontier in general. I mean, if you really walk around, even in the large metropolitan areas like New York, I mean, the digital signage is very limited, right? There's like digital billboards, there's taxi stoppers, there's bus shelters. So we're really enabling something. I mean, people are already driving around. We're giving people an opportunity to purchase and own these, earn as they go, and also express themselves in whatever way they like, right? Or, a lot of businesses will use it for conferences and all that. I mean, there's really a lot of applications to it. But it's just, real estate that's highly visible, right? Because, when you're in an urban area, you got a lot of eyeballs, you're moving.
Oh, yeah.
And it's really a medium that's going to allow for people to get more exposure and visibility, and in a new plane, basically.
Yeah. And I could imagine when you're talking about, the distraction and especially in the cities, walking around, you just see people in their phones, right? So I could imagine this is something that will definitely help those businesses that are trying to get those consumers. And it also sounds like there's some sort of benefit to the driver as well. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, aside from it just being another publishing platform and out of home, we've really geared it to be a big benefit for the drivers from just a new revenue source. So as you drive around, you can monetize. We geo-target and we count impressions, similar to other out of home signage platforms. But we also I think that's one of the biggest ones is you can earn up to $500 per month just on your regular routine. Going to work, commuting. And, that could be substantial to a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And of course, there's a gig economy drivers, right, who drive maybe 70 hours a week, right? So, so the opportunity is there. And really how we set it up is we are allowing the consumer to own it, theirs, and they keep most of the upside and most of the revenue, right? Because it's their platform, it's their investment. And that's how we kind of structured it from the beginning.
So tell me a little bit about the beginning and how do you have a team that you kind of worked with to really take things off the ground? This is such an interesting concept. I'd love to hear how it kind of started. I'm sure there's a lot of listeners who are scratching their heads trying to figure out how can I get this passion project off the ground, or how can I get something that's really, it feels so far-fetched, but it's something that I really want to get started on. Can you share anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, just some tips surrounding that. I mean, we're a hardware software play, right? So it's definitely not an easy. It's a huge undertaking. This has been a few years in the making now, and there's a lot of learning we had to make. We had to do, and a lot of iterations, and I had to basically optimize our supply chain to make sure that we could build something that's not only scalable but affordable and at the right price point and all that. So there is a lot of things you got to consider when you're building something that's hardware based. Uh, but one of my tips would be just one step at a time. Don't get overwhelmed with trying to get it all done in a year. Just bit
Mm,
by bit, whatever you can, take bites that you can actually chew, right? So, uh, I know that's super cliche, but you really just got to take it step by step, um, and not feel like, oh, somebody else is already doing it or something similar. I don't really believe in that because I feel like you can execute anything, any business model, any service, any product in all kinds of different ways. So that's something to keep in mind. When you're working on something, try to find an addressable market that makes
mm,
sense, large enough. If you're thinking about going the venture capital route,
mm.
but just you're unique and you're going to build a unique team, and you have inherent values that no one else has. You're going to have a different vision, and you see it all over and over and over again. Even if there was another company that was already doing what we're doing, we would still do it differently, and I think we would still be successful. I mean, yeah, we have an advantage because we're kind of the first mover in this space, and we have
Mm-hmm.
patents now and everything else. Um, but I don't know. I mean, I can kind of talk a bit more about advice for entrepreneurs, but if you really are passionate, that's a great start. If you're doing it for the right reasons, if it's just
Mm-hmm.
money and trying to live a good life, then you're probably going to build a service and product that no one needs, and you're just kind of pushing it down their throats. You don't want
Mm-hmm.
to build something that really creates value for society and something that people actually want, and it makes your job easier. And yeah, it may take a little longer to figure that out, but in the long run, you're actually creating some net positive change.
That's great advice. How did you and your team identify your uniqueness?
Well, uh, you know, that's an interesting question. Just having the cars out. When we just have the cars out in any city in the world. I mean, we've gotten. I've been to Dubai, I've been to China, and I've
Hmm.
demos there. People just get mind blown. Everyone kind of takes pictures. Everyone kind of looks, and it's one of those neck turner.
Yeah, it's flashy.
It's flashy, so it's a big advantage, right? Because people, the public really finds it fascinating and cool and innovative and all of that. So that's when I kind of realized that this is going to be big, when
Mm-hmm.
you just drive your car up to a public gathering and you literally steal the show. Everyone on the street just, hey, what is that? Like,
Right.
it's one of those moments. It's kind of like driving up in a Bugatti or a Lamborghini. It's kind of similar. So I think that's for advertising and publishing content. I think that's very valuable for brands. Um, and of course, the counter argument could be, we'll lose our novelty down the line, but this is just our first product. We're going to continue to innovate, continue to build products that are attractive and catch attention. But I
Right.
think this has been a huge advantage for us.
Absolutely. And yeah, kind of like what we were talking about before, this is solving a challenge that we're going to just continue to face in terms of the fight against digital real estate, traditional digital real estate. This is something that is innovative, it's different, it's eye catching. So I love what you're doing. And yeah, I think it's important, everything that you just talked about in terms of finding that passion, not giving up, getting the feedback. That sounds like that's pretty critical to, the constant iteration, putting it out there. It sounds like is the most important first step, just like getting something out there. Doesn't have to be final, doesn't have to be the perfect version of it, but it sounds like you're saying put yourself out there, put it out there, get some feedback, and then iterate along the way.
Yeah, it's perfectly summarized. Exactly. That's
Well, I'm glad that I could just summarize it right for you. I'll put the words right in your mouth. Awesome, David. So tell me a little bit more. I mean, we have all been experiencing a completely different world, especially with the pandemic. Can you talk a little bit about any impact that the pandemic has had on you or your company, the team, your customers?
yeah. Fortunately, we're in tech, and I've been working remotely for years now, so that really that change, it wasn't really, working from home wasn't really a big change for
Right.
me, or really most engineers in Silicon Valley, as you know. People have been working remote for a while now, right? So that really hasn't changed. I think I mean, you know, the pandemic has been, catastrophic in many, many areas. But fortunately for us, particularly, we've actually started to do better because of the pandemic. Not in a weird way. A lot of our competitors, like some taxi toppers, company, I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't even consider them competitors, but a lot of these signage companies have folded. So it's like it kind of really cleaned the slate out. But
Right.
aside from that, um, you know, it's worked for us, right? Less overhead. We don't, we closed. We're not using our office anymore, so we save some money there. We don't have to have a brick and mortar office anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, of course, there's less people out, right? So really, it allowed us, this time period has allowed us to just go back to the lab and continue to just develop the product a bit more. Um, because yeah, there's not, during the pandemic, or at least in 2020 and early 2021, people weren't out, right? So until recently, right? So it wasn't really the right time to get the product out anyway.
Yeah.
But it was, we've kind of just, at least that's how I see life in general. I always like to turn negatives into positives. Like I just flip them, and I look at opportunities like that in everything. Um, so at least that's how I see it.
Yeah. And I'm sure, especially as a founder and as a business leader and someone who has a team that is kind of looking to them to maybe guide them, it's important to have that attitude. No one wants to kind of be led by somebody who's overly optimistic or overly pessimistic. So it's great to hear that you have found a way to strike a healthy balance for both perspectives. It's important.
I try my best, I really do. My best.
So you mentioned that there's some things on the horizon, or that you see some more iterations coming for Pranos.ai. That this isn't the only thing that we can expect to come. Can you share a little bit about what you see on the horizon coming up for us?
There's just so much. I mean, I'm talking to an executive producer at MTV who wants to do a reality show around my life and my team's life, and I guess the company in general.
Yeah.
We shot a pilot, and we may go forward with it. We're not sure, but I think it could be great PR and marketing. But we've gotten attention from a lot of the automotive manufacturers around the world. We're under NDA with two top 5 automotive manufacturers, and we just got a call with Quality Control, Interscope Records. A lot of the top record labels in LA want to work with us because
It's
of
amazing.
course the hip hop industry. It's something that gravitates with that. There's some synergies there. The music industry, particularly. But aside from that, we have a really interesting product in the pipeline, as well as like the HoloWall, which converts your whole storefront
Oh,
um,
wow.
into digital. So basically the same thing, same concept, same principle, but for your storefront. So now you can, monetize, your real estate,
Wow.
commercial real estate that's probably dying anyways, because it's, commercial real estate took a huge hit. So, so that's another product we're working on.
That's awesome. And so tell me a little more about the music component. I would love to hear how you are seeing that kind of play into things.
Yeah. Well, the music component is actually one of our big, huge, huge, huge card for us. I attended the Grammys 2 years ago. We got invited by the same executive producer, actually. And, when we were out there, I met a lot of people, and of course, everyone we kind of mentioned this to, they love it, right? Because it's just makes
Right.
a lot of people. But particularly these artists, right, who are always they're obsessed with billboards, right? Their vision is, I want to be my face, I want my face plastered everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
When they see someone developing this, they're like, this is the coolest thing ever. But aside from that, they think it's like a lot of these hip hop artists particularly find it flashy and cool and luxurious, right? Um, so, we spoke to J-Lo's team 2 years ago to attend with, when she was signed to Hitco, and we didn't end up closing the deal, but, we were going to put it on a Bentley, and she was going to arrive to the Grammys with technology.
Oh, very cool.
So things of that nature. We have talked to artists. We're in talks with the Migos. I don't know if you're familiar with those guys.
Oh,
Um,
I love them.
oh yeah. So a lot of these very mainstream artists
Yeah.
um, really find it interesting, and I think, and really to answer your question, is that's going to be huge for us because really entering the market, we want to make sure we equip a few influencers like those guys, some TikTokers. We're talking to the manager at what is it called? The TikTok house. The name is escaping my house, but
Mm.
man, I totally blanked. But these
I wish I
TikTokers,
knew more about TikTok, but I know that whoever is an influencer on TikTok,
right? We're talking to Talent X, and they signed a few of these top TikTokers. One of
very
them,
cool.
I'm not big on TikTok either, but so it's like it does seem to gravitate with
To the influencers.
yeah, and I think that's going to be great because if we can make this something that is cool and trendy and accepted by society, that's going to allow us to hit this massive scale that we want. And that's when the advertisers are going to pour in each
Oh
market.
yeah.
When we have massive scale, and when you have massive scale, then all these people that own these units now have the opportunity to earn as they drive. So really, we're phasing the approach. So we kind of want to make it a hot product first, a
Yeah.
premium product, a consumer product, roll it out, get massive scale, and then roll out the B2B play.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, I think everything that you just discussed about the influencers and the musicians makes tons of sense. What we've been talking about earlier about the
Yeah.
brands and the driver benefit. I could imagine Uber and Lyft, they're probably on maybe your phase 3 plan of some potential partnerships. That feels like a perfect fit, right? Getting the Uber drivers to put their windows, make them Pranos.ai. So and with the billboard or the retail spaces.
Right.
So
Well, and I just wanted to add, it's
please.
also Uber and Lyft because I got a story, I got an anecdote for you because when we're, in the first, I was one of the co-owners at Grabit, and we went to Y Combinator, the program, before we started Pranos. That company then ended up dissolving because, we just had to close it down.
Right.
But our first investor in that company was the chairman of Lyft, actually. And he was basically Lyft's first investor and our first investor. And, he really believed in us. And it was just, for me, that was probably one of the most life-changing moments. Like, I was just coming out of college, and now I'm in a garage in our weekly huddles, and the chairman of Lyft is like whiteboarding with us.
Wow.
And it was just, it was a validating moment, but it just allowed me to learn from a lot of these guys, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever, right?
Yeah.
For someone in the industry, sadly, I don't think Uber and Lyft are doing well anymore, but yeah, I learned a lot from Sean. I mean, that guy's he's brilliant and incredibly humble. That was another thing that kind of blew my mind. It's like the most powerful guy I've ever talked to, and it's like the most humble and nice guy ever. It was
Right.
like I didn't really expect that, but you see that in Silicon Valley all the time. All these guys that are, they just see life differently. I think.
Willing to help, they see an idea, and it goes back to what we were talking about, having the confidence and being able to show that uniqueness of who you are and what you're trying to sell. So yeah, I would say when we're thinking about it, kind of going over your success and your career, you mentioned some of those things. It sounds like networking, or it sounds like relationships is also pretty critical or key. You've had several from MTV, the chairman at Lyft, like all these different touch points have been influential along the way, it sounds like.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot more, but yeah, I mean, I think it does help that we're working on something that has a lot of potential. So getting in front of these people has not been a problem, really. It's been an advantage. And now it's just executing and delivering the product that's, the challenge, and we got to get the right team. But yeah, I think, building those relationships and learning and keeping an open mind, to your audience. Yeah, just go for it. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, it's really a journey of self-discovery, because a lot of the things you thought, a lot of the things the biases that you had about life tend to be like flipped as you continue your journey. And as you continue to succeed a bit, right? You start to realize like, dang, like it's completely the other way around. And it's interesting, So you just gotta be
That's
open.
great to hear.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples of that? Like, do you have a memory of a perspective that you had and how it changed as you kind of continued on?
Yeah, I mean, I think this the last few years I've done a lot of self-development, a lot of just mental work, a lot of inner work. I mean, most of the work that I do is inner work, just because I really, at the end of the day, the only person you're really competing with, and I know it sounds cliche, is really yourself, man. There's no one going after you but your dark side of your mind, and
Yeah.
and things of that nature. It's like really, really exploring your mind and thinking, really going deep in introspection and realizing why are you having the thoughts you're having? What's the root of having this bias or thinking this way, or my bad habits? Where do they root from? And then try to go to the root and change those things. You got to rewire your brain to completely change yourself into that dream version of yourself that you have. Well, whatever dream version, imagine yourself 10 years from now, the perfect version of yourself. What habits does that person have? How do they act? Who are they hanging out with? What are they talking about? What are they reading about? And then just try to just go back and try to. It is a process, and I'm still just starting, and I'm still just iterating. I'll continue to do this till I die.
Oh yeah.
I'll never really get anywhere. I mean, I hopefully continue to progress, but it's like infinite there's just infinite room for development. That's what
the sky's the limit. And it's hard work. It's hard work, and it's stuff that nobody teaches you. You don't go to school for such critical business success. At the end of the day, yeah, it's all about managing yourself, managing emotions, managing your perspectives, your biases. So everything that you've been doing, it's been working, and I'm so appreciative that you've been able to come on the show and share all of your secrets and your tips for our audience, and especially those looking to break into some emerging technology. So I can't thank you enough, David, and I'm sure we will be seeing some amazing things. Maybe I'll be walking down the street and seeing a interactive car with some like dancers or something. Who knows?
Yeah. It'll be in Silicon Valley very soon. So.
Yeah. See. Where could we learn a little bit more about Pranos.ai and anything coming up that we should be aware of?
Yeah. So, currently we're actually selling, we're targeting we're planning on dilute 6% of the company. And we're actually selling some of our shares to the public market through the Reg CF offering. So we're filing with the SEC and all that, and we're selling a bit of the company to the public, and that's going really well. I mean, so if your audience wants to go check that out, we're on WeFunder. Just look up Pranos.ai, and then our website is www.pranos.ai. You can just learn a bit about us, or if you're interested in joining us on the ride, buy some shares.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. To hear more, check out our website, badassesintech.com, and join our community. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud, so follow us and tune in next week. That about sums it up. I'm Summer Falgiano, and this is Badasses in Tech.